Who here has read The Trouble with Wilderness by William Cronin? Ah, incredible! If you haven't read it, you should. It changed the way I think about the world and also inspired this project. He discusses how early European naturalists created the idea that there is a human-dominated unnatural landscape and a remote natural wilderness that should be focused on for conservation. Cronin challenges this ideology. He says, by imagining that our true homes are in the wilderness, we forgive ourselves of the homes that we actually inhabit. Yes, industrialization has caused habitat fragmentation and ecological inequity. However, the urban regions of this variegated environment should still be treated with care and as nature. Instead of the natural and unnatural landscape, this project seeks to address how the landscape prior to settler colonialism, or the historical landscape, has transformed into the industrialized landscape. In order to treat the entire landscape as nature, restoration practices should be implemented in urban environments. This reconnects fragmented habitat and also increases green space accessibility. Accessibility to green spaces is intrinsic for connection to place. In a survey I distributed, this was defined as connecting with your surroundings through stories, memories, and the environment. By improving ecological productivity, we can also improve our relationship with the environment. I thought, what if the land was urbanized and able to function to its full ecological potential? What if the landscape to be restored to its original function? I arrived at my research question. What are the best practices for native plant restoration, and how can they be applied in urban spaces? I interned with Weed Warriors, a local organization with a commitment to restore and rehabilitate urban spaces. This is my supervisor, Grace, who founded and runs the organization. If you take anything from this presentation, be more like Grace. For my internship, I would go to the Myers Way wetland in South Seattle and make a pile like this one, full of invasive species that suffocate the environment and make it harder for the ecosystem to thrive. I would also go to the Weed Warriors native plant garden, where I did tasks like transplanting the salal or planting this kinnikinnick. Or I would participate in fundraising events where I chatted with plant-loving community members. Every day, I would compose notes developing concrete practices for restoration. Additionally, I conducted my own outside research where I interviewed 8 different professionals working in green space management. I asked them questions about the logistics of green space production, relating but not limited to sustainable design, volunteering, funding, and land acquisition. Here, I developed key principles of green space production. Best practices included prioritizing safety of workers by ensuring proper gear and sustenance is provided, pre-assessment of plants at the restoration site to increase efficiency, and editing of restored ecosystems over time. Key principles emphasized addressing ecological needs of native flora and fauna, ensuring maintenance of completed projects, and ensuring that communities collaborate in the whole process. From my internship notes and my interview notes, I compiled this into the Urban Green Space Project process to fully answer my question. The first step is assembling a team of dedicated environmental stewards. I will now highlight important aspects of the rest. For planning and collaboration, my interviewees and internship supervisor most emphasized community engagement. Communities at prospective green space sites should be involved in every part of the process to ensure that community needs are met and not exacerbated. Site design was also emphasized. Here, I have pinpointed the Myers Way wetland and wildlife reserves that surround it. By designing the site to mimic these areas, wildlife habitat can be reconnected by creating spaces called wildlife corridors. To analyze site ecology, historical landscape analysis was recommended. This is where the original landscape is compared to the current, asking questions like, what flora and fauna were present at this site 100 or 200 years ago? How has the site changed in this time? For my deliverable, I compiled all of this information into a 50-page, 12-section manual designed to be comprehensive yet concise. This is intended to be used by community members who have the drive to create a green space but have no idea of where to begin. My hope is that over time, the responsibility of green space management can be shifted from government agencies and nonprofits directly to communities within the green space site. This expands green space production, and also environmental stewardship can foster connection to place. We have the ability to create green cities. Once we make it accessible, the possibilities are endless. Start a community garden in your front lawn, organize a litter cleanup for your neighborhood, or volunteer to help maintain a local park. The Green Space Project process starts with you. I want to take the time to acknowledge the ecocide and genocide going on in Palestine. I will take the last moments of my presentation for silence to think of the lives lost. Thank you. Yes. Thank you so much for that question. I'm so glad you asked. They asked, what do you mean by editing the landscape? Editing, or adaptive management is another word for it, is where you look at the ecosystem and you say, what does this plant need? Oh, this plant needs more shade. I'm going to move it to more shade. Oh, what does this plant need? This plant needs another plant to help it out with nutrients. I'm going to plant a new plant next to it. It's basically the concept of looking at the plant needs and looking at the ecosystem needs as a whole and then applying those over time. Thank you.